Hey guys, I think it's time to make a video that covers resources that I think are indispensable for becoming a system administrator, a competent scripter or programmer, um, and just a competent technological person. I'm going to plug a variety of things. I think no one resource can be everything you need for becoming a system administrator, and most of all, no online course can teach you everything you need to know. System administration is, I gotta say, it's one of the most incredibly huge domains that I've ever seen. And I've done a whole bunch of different stuff. I've had a couple different careers, and being a sysadmin probably requires more knowledge than anything else I've seen. I mean, you can be a happy programmer earning 120K a year while having sort of the total knowledge of a junior system administrator. My point is no one book or one course can cover it all. I'm going to try to recommend in this video a couple things that are extremely useful to have, and they're really focused around A, having domain knowledge, that is theoretical knowledge that helps you. Two, having practical knowledge. You can never just read enough or watch enough videos and become a sysadmin. It's just not going to happen that way. You have to try stuff yourself, you have to troubleshoot yourself, and you have to run into problems that you can't solve alone and find help. On the other hand, you also can't just have a bunch of problems that there's answers for on Google or something else that you can find. You need to work your way through problems and follow them all the way down the stack and spend time reading one man page after another or some documentation online until solving the problem. I mean, that's really what much of your work, at least the hard part, will be. Okay, so it's a combination of all these things. The other thing I think is important is sort of background community stuff to be involved with, places that a fairly large community hangs out. There's always new places cropping up as a ton of new people come. Some of the old places are bad. For example, 5 years ago I would have recommended Slashdot. I don't anymore. It's not really an interesting place anymore. So the community is always moving between different places and always changing. I'm just saying my community recommendations will go out of style probably in the next couple of years. The first place I would start, Unix and Linux System Administration Handbook. It's phenomenal. This is one of the greatest books I think ever written about Linux and Unix and just being a system administrator. It's huge, but it's incredibly readable. I mean, the 5-star reviews are just, I mean, these aren't like badly spelled reviews from questionable sources all on the same day. These are phenomenal. And almost all the complaints are really about the Kindle edition or various small problems that have nothing to do with the content. This pretty much sums up my opinion too. This is a book that's like fun to read before you go to bed at night. I know it sounds bizarre, but it's so readable, and it's written in a professional yet conversational tone by just people who are amazing experts. Rest in peace, Abby. Yeah, this is where I would start. This will sort of, if you read everything in this book and play around with most of it, you will be immediately useful as a professional sysadmin. I would go that far as to say that this is that good. The other thing is this is more of a sort of heuristic, a little bit higher level guide to the business aspect of being a system and network administrator for money, and the fact that you'll be working in an organization, and a little bit of politics, and a little bit of how to do stuff and get stuff done, and how to architect systems. So it's a little bit higher level. It's still good to have, especially when you're not a junior system administrator anymore. This is like an excellent guide. It's getting a tiny bit out of date. I think cloud stuff was just beginning to happen. They've written a new one, but I still think this is a pretty good guide for like how to set up services inside of your organization. So how to run a help desk service. For programming, if you decide that you enjoy scripting and you get into programming, and you get more into programming, and you get more and more into programming, as I have, you'll find that this book will blow your mind repeatedly. It is incredibly challenging and interesting. I actually recommend all the MIT OpenCourseWare videos. There's a new video series, which is also very good, that uses Python. I prefer the old video series, which uses, it's probably from the 1980s, mid-1980s, that uses Scheme Lisp. It's phenomenal. This book is incredible. It will blow your mind. It took me a long time to work through this. I'm actually still working through it, but it's amazing. Okay, the other books I would really recommend, once you have a kind of a grasp of one or two programming languages and you want to really dive deeply and have your mind blown, you could even start with something like this, the little schemer. This will also blow your mind. It's phenomenal. Okay, so that's sort of my functional programming page. Okay, back to system administration. This page is actually extremely useful. They've changed the design a little bit, but there are some great tutorials here, and this gives you a very good overview of specific services you might want to run. I get a lot of questions that are like, how do I set up server X or Y? And unless that's really teaching a specific principle that I want to talk about, I generally don't do tutorial videos like that, because setting up specific services, all services are similar enough that if you understand Linux at sort of a foundational core level, you can set up any service on it because there's a limited number of things. Everything has to play by Linux or Unix rules. So, having a million tutorials on every specific service isn't that interesting to me. My channel here is much more focused on getting you foundational skills to understand Linux and Unix so that you can then go and figure everything else out yourself in just a couple hours. Like, how do I set up Nginx? Well, read the Nginx docs. That's what they're there for. But if you don't understand how sockets and networking on Linux works, or how the proc file system works, or limits, C groups, anything like that, you're going to have problems understanding everything, and everything's going to be really difficult for you. So that's my role, at least. That's what I'm targeting my content at, is getting you to a level where you are educated enough to be able to figure out stuff on your own and work independently. This is a very good place to get practical experience. This is not my original idea, but I remember someone online somewhere saying, work through all of these guides that are available here and set all of these services up once. Thanks to tools like LXC on Linux or BSD jails or even a virtual machine, you can very easily simply create a new container and play around with the basic networking guide. Play around with link aggregation or bonding. Set up an open LDAP server. Not so fun when you don't have stuff. Fine, set up open LDAP and do authentication through Kerberos. If you have an Active Directory network at work maybe, and you're already a junior sysadmin, play with integrating your Unix machines with that and your open LDAP or whatever you've got. Set up web servers. Like, this is where you should be starting, right, for practical experience. After you understand how networking works, how HTTP works a little bit, maybe watch some of the sysadmin tutorials. This is not hard. None of these commands in here are incredibly difficult. How do you set up a LAMP server? So Linux, Apache, MySQL for the database, and PHP as your language. How do you get started with Ruby on Rails? Also, high availability is interesting. I'm not sure what this is using, probably HA proxy, but how do you make something highly available? These are really interesting things to know. They're important. How to set up web apps, maybe less interesting. Different applications. Here we go. DNS, bind. If you want a project for a couple of years, bind. Proxy servers, different databases. You get the point. You run through here, pick stuff that looks interesting, and I've highlighted a lot of the stuff that I think is really worth it, and set up a bunch of servers. Set up OpenVPN, set up Nginx, figure out how to load balance something or do it high availability. These things will all give you experience that you can talk about, and it's not something that's suited for a video format. You can't just watch a video on HA proxy and be like, all right, I now know how to design highly available infrastructures. You play with this yourself. You get a job doing this. You learn from other people. It's not as easy as just reading a book or watching a video, and this is a great way to get practical experience before you have a job. So work your way through this. The link is up here. Ubuntu is good. DigitalOcean also has a lot of tutorials. So a lot of their I presume they did it to have like a social media presence and great search keywords to get tech people to come to them. But they have amazing tutorials that are relevant and updated with fair frequency. It's just great. Okay, you're going to Google around and you're going to end up at one of these two places a lot. Server faults. This is for all of your system administration needs. You can see these are technical questions. It's a question and answer format. Stack Exchange. It's fantastic. This is an amazing resource for getting answers or finding specific questions already answered. The same thing for programming, Stack Overflow. I think this was the first Stack Exchange site. It's fantastic. Same idea, but for programming. Now we're getting into the community side of things. Reddit, still mostly a cool place. A lot of these community kind of things get bought up by large media organizations. I think in Reddit's case, is it Condé Nast? I don't know. Anyway, big-ass media corporations buy these things, and then they start kind of sucking. The community changes, it grows. I think Reddit's still pretty good. You can get a lot of interesting people on here and interesting stuff happening. This is just a way to kind of immerse yourself in a community that deals with all this knowledge that you're trying to learn. And that's a really great way to make sure you actually learn it, is to be around a lot of other people that either know it or are also learning it. So Reddit, r sysadmin, there's a couple other ones like r Linux and whatever you're into. Hacker News. It's great. This is sort of startup news, so this is probably more interesting if you're into development and programming. But a lot of interesting stuff going on here, and a lot of very, very interesting people that will write things that will just blow your mind or teach you something new. It's really cool. The way it works is the links up here take you to the original article that's being linked. For discussion, click on the comments. This is just a plug for Soylent News. It's like, I was going to put Slashdot in here. If I had done this video 5 years ago, I would have. Slashdot really blows now, and for the most part, this is sort of using the same framework. I think it's interesting. There's some interesting people on here. It's not big, but I encourage you to check this out. I would love to see this thing grow. Okay, end plug. I'm not really active on here, but I just enjoy it. And last but not least, I haven't plugged Deus Ex in a while. If you haven't played the game Deus Ex, you should just go play it. It will not teach you anything about being a system administrator, except that computers are awesome. But seriously, if you haven't played the original Deus Ex, go download it right now. Like good old games, GOG.com or like Steam or whatever. You can get this for like $2 to $5. It's totally worth it. Go play this thing. Okay, this video is already getting long. If you want something to start with right now that will make you a better sysadmin and give you just an unbelievable resource and motivate you, I highly, highly recommend that you start with this Unix and Linux System Administration Handbook. It's got so much personality, and it's just, I recommend it to everyone as the place to start. Go buy this thing right now, and remember the other things. If you've got suggestions, there are so many things that I can't even keep track of in terms of community sites and great resources and other stuff that occasionally I'll post stuff in the comments. But if you've got ideas, post them here, because just add a comment and, you know, give me your suggestions for great places that have either a good community or amazing content for becoming a sysadmin. There you go. Enjoy.